Do you want to automate the reporting process in your business? Ciao and welcome to my new video. Today I'm gonna show you how you can save hours of your days on updating spreadsheets and creating reports. If you don't know me already, I'm a business automation consultant and I help busy managers and entrepreneurs automate their processes so they can save time and reduce the overwhelm of the team. This video can help you if you find yourself in the following situation. At the moment, your reporting process probably takes a lot of time and it's really manual. When I say manual, I mean that you don't have your data centralized and you haven't automated the collection of that data. That causes a lot of frustration and can lead to a higher probability to have human mistakes. And that's why you would like to automate this process and to have a real time picture, a real time dashboard of what is happening in your business. Let's start with the premise. Of course, the tech stack that I mentioned in this video is just an example. You need to take into account a lot of factors when it comes to designing your reporting process. I have listed out in the slide the factors that I think are the most important ones. The first factor is the output that you need. So, the end result, that is basically the structure of the reports and the dashboard that you are trying to create. From there, of course, you go backwards and then you understand how you can automate the reporting process. The second factor is the way that you have automated your processes. You need to ask yourself, what's inside my processes? What kind of tools are we using? You need to centralize your data and automate the data collection, and that's why this second factor is really important. The following factors are the complexity of data structure and the amount of data. As you can understand for sure, a multinational company will have a totally different reporting process and tech stack than a small or medium enterprise. Last but not least, we have the budget available. The more complexity you want to add to your reporting process, the more money you have to probably invest in order to buy tools that are more sophisticated and that can help you to achieve your goals. In this video, you'll see how I have automated the reporting process for a client of mine using ActiveCampaign, Zapier, Google Sheet, and Google Data Studio. So in the next probably 20 minutes, I will show you the following things: how to centralize your data, how to automate the data collection, and then how to create a real-time dashboard for your business. Before we start, I suggest that you watch my video Not Only Sales and Marketing Automation, because in that video, I basically explain some processes that you can automate in your business, and I have also explained the benefits. As you can see, that is basically the first phase. The following phase is what we are going to cover in this video. So, measuring those processes and creating reports. Let's start with a little bit of context. There are different ways to create reports. And here I'm talking about specifically tools such as ActiveCampaign or HubSpot. With standard reports, you get specific data about campaigns, automations, deals, and contacts. And it's limited because they work in silos. So you can't actually cross join info from those different areas. That's useful if you need data about a specific campaign or automation, but since they work in silos, they are not good in order to get an overall picture of what is happening in your business. Then you have custom reports. They are more advanced since you can choose the measures and the dimensions, and you can cross join data from different tables such as deals, contacts, the e-commerce part, etc. But the problem is that it's available only in the enterprise plan. So it's not going to be the topic for this video. The third way is to build your own system. And that's, of course, the best solution if you want to fully customize your reports and if you want to be able to create a real time dashboard to get an overall view of what is happening in your business. This is the process that I follow. The first step is always defining the most important KPIs for every process that we want to automate the reporting for. And then the second step is always understanding when and how to register certain info. Once we understand the KPIs that we want to track, we also understand what info we need to register and when. So, for example, a new lead comes in, or a new customers, a new client, etc. After that, we need to build a system that automatically registers and organizes that info. So here we are basically automating the data collection. And the last step is to connect a tool for data visualization. How do you do all of that? After you have defined the KPIs, you know what events you want to track. So in order to do that, you need to use webhook steps inside ActiveCampaign automations. Let's say that you have a new lead. You probably have created an automation to manage that lead, and you need to create inside that automation a webhook step. A webhook is basically a package of info, a package of data that is related to that specific contact that ActiveCampaign creates and sends it to the URL that you specify inside the step. You can then use that package of info in another software to do a number of things. In our case, we use that URL to trigger a Zap. Zapier basically automates the data collection. So receives the package of data, the package of info about that specific contact, and then we can automate the manual work that your team usually has to do, such as checking whether the email is already in the spreadsheet or updating the values, etc. It allows to create a raw data tab with all the info needed for data visualization. And that is basically the last step, connecting to the spreadsheet a data visualization tool in order to create the reports and the dashboard. Let's recap the whole process. The first thing that I do is to clearly define the most important KPIs that I want to track in one process. After that, I understand when and how I need to register a specific event, a specific info. And for that, I use ActiveCampaign automations and webhooks steps. After that, I build a system that automatically registers and organizes that info in a spreadsheet. And for that, I use Zapier and spreadsheets. And the last step is connecting Google Data Studio or any other data visualization tool to the spreadsheet so I can create the reports and the final dashboard. As an example, I'm gonna show you what I have implemented for one of my clients. It's a large music school with more than 800 students, and they needed help with the following processes: sales and marketing, enrollment management, and withdrawal request management. And specifically, I am going to show you the following: an active campaign automation, a workflow that I have implemented with Zapier, and then I will give you an overview of the dashboard. Here, I would like to make a disclaimer because you should avoid the set it and forget it approach. If you have this kind of mindset, this kind of approach, your business automation strategy will fail for sure because things change and change really fast. So your tech stack must be adapted to the changes. And now we can start with the overview. Let's start with the active campaign automation. As I previously mentioned, there are many events that I track. For example, a new enrollment, a new lead, a new withdrawal request, etc. In this example, I'm showing you the automation that I created for a new enrollment. I am not going to explain to you the details of the process because that is not the purpose of this video. And for this reason, we can go directly to the webhook step. In this case, I created it here because it makes sense for the way that I have implemented the process and the automation. You need to create it where it makes sense for you. Inside, you can see this URL, and this URL is basically what triggers this Zap in Zapier. The second action is look up spreadsheet row in Google Sheets. Here, what I do is basically using the email address and check if it's already in the spreadsheet. Why? Because the automation that I showed you before, it's for tracking the new enrollments. So I want to check if the email is already in the spreadsheet because I want to check if it was a lead previously. So the possible answers are two: yes, That email is already in a spreadsheet, and that means that it was previously a lead. And no, that email is not in the spreadsheet, and that means that it was not a lead previously. So in the first case, what I do is I update the spreadsheet row that is already that has been already created in the Google Sheet, and I updated the values in order to track the programs that the contact enrolled in. And then in the second case, if it's not a lead already, what I do is to create a new row. This is just an example because of course I created many other automations in ActiveCampaign and many other apps in Zapier because I'm tracking a lot of different events. We have different lead magnets on the websites. We run ads. What we also want to track new enrollments, and then we also want to track other things such as withdrawals request and so on. So what I show you is just the general logic in order for you to understand how I have implemented this data collection process. This is what the raw data tab looks like after I implemented all these apps and automations. As you can see, we have different columns: first name, last name, email, lead date, the source, the lead interest. Then I track also the enrollment date, the student type, and the student programs. So this is a general overview of all the data that we collect, and this is specifically for leads and enrollments. And then I created also a raw data tab for the withdrawals, and in this case, we have the data of request, first name, last name, the email, um, the student name, and other info that for my client was important for tracking purposes. As I previously mentioned, what I just showed you are raw data tabs. We had to create some intermediate tabs in order to organize the data that we have automatically collected in order to prepare it for data visualization. This is the end result. As you can see, there are many pages, but I am going to show you just the main ones because I want to give you an overall view of how we have implemented the dashboard. So let's start from the first page. It's about the leads KPIs. At the beginning, we have a snapshot of the current year situation. So we have the year to date number of leads, the year to date number of enrollments, and then the percentage converted. Below, we have some graphs that gives us an overview of what is happening with leads and enrollments. For example, in this graph, we see by month the number of enrollments and the number of leads. So we have a quick view of the overall situation. And then to the right, we have two graphs. The first one is about the percentage converted by month. So we can quickly identify if there is a month with a low conversion rate. And then we have the average enrollment velocity by month. This is measured with days. So it's, I don't know, like on average, that month, you needed 5 days, 10 days, 15 days to convert the lead into a customer. So these graphs are really important in order to have a quick view, a quick snapshot of the situation of the business. Below, there is a graph with a breakdown of the leads interest by month. Each month, we have the total number of leads and then a breakdown by interest. And that is, of course, important if you want to spot trends about the leads interest, and that can be useful for your marketing campaigns. The second page is for enrollments. Music schools usually have two macro categories of courses that they sell, and it's kinder music and lessons. The purpose of this page is to have a visual representation of the breakdown by month for those two macro categories. As you can see, we have a stacked bar chart where we represent by month, by each month, the total number of enrollments and then the breakdown by the two different macro categories. And then we have withdrawals. Students, of course, can change their enrollment and they can also withdraw from it. What I have created here is the following. On the right, you find a graph where by each month you find the number of withdrawals that each one of the two macro categories got. For example, January, for lesson we had I don't know, like 10 withdrawals, and for Kinder Music we had only 5. So this is really useful if you want to track how many withdrawals you got by each month, and also a breakdown by the two macro categories, so lessons and Kinder Music. And then on the right, we have the distribution by month. So it's basically the percentage of each month considering the total amount of withdrawals of the whole year. And this is useful if you want to understand if there is one month where you got more withdrawals than the other ones. And then below, we find a breakdown by reasons by month. Each month, we have basically a breakdown of what have been the reasons for those withdrawals. Of course, since now we have selected basically all the months, this is not really good to read. But if we choose here, for example, only 3 months, March, April, and May, we can see that now it's easier to understand this graph. So for March, April, and May, we have the reasons why the students decided to withdraw, and we have a breakdown of the reasons. And then below, we have a table with the list of teachers and the months. Basically, here, what we are trying to do is to understand if there is one month where we specifically had like a lot of withdrawals, and then we want to have a breakdown by teacher in order to understand if there is any problem that we can solve in order to improve the service. Last but not least, we have the sources. This is, of course, related to the leads. Here I have selected only 5 months because then the graph is more readable. And as you can see here, we have a breakdown. I mean, each month we have a breakdown of the sources and how many leads we got from those sources. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you want to share your feedback, you can do it by commenting below. And in case you want to learn more about the process that I follow to help my clients, you can download my guide, my business automation guide. You can find the link in the description of this video. Or if you are interested in automating your business, you can fill out the application form on my website. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next ones. Ciao!